This is part 2 of a series of me correcting the lies and falsehoods in Reverend Kent Hovind's videos, wherein he tried to dismiss astronomical evidence for a universe that is billions of years old. As we rejoin Reverend Hovind, we find he is arguing for a supernatural explanation for the formation of stars. He claimed in his video that there is no natural explanation for how stars form. By the way, I also apologize for the poor lighting. Yeah, fuck it. Someday I'll enter the 20th century.
If dust tries to get together, as it increases in density, it increases the temperature, which increases the movement, and it drives it back away. It's called Boyle's gas laws.
Stars are not made out of dust. They are made out of hydrogen. Anyone who claims to have taught high school science for 15 years ought to know that. Also, Boyle's law applies to closed systems. Stars are not closed systems. The formation of stars does not have anything to do with Reverend Hovind's problem. We observe light from objects billions of light years away. No matter how stars formed, that is still a problem for Hovind. Hovind is evading the issue by throwing out totally irrelevant bullshit.
You cannot compress dust into solid matter without creating a real serious physical science problem of overcoming the gas laws.
And again, Boyle's law does not apply to dust. It applies to gas in a closed system. Stars are not closed systems. I should also point out that stellar fusion turns light elements into heavy elements in the process known as stellar nucleosynthesis. Stars use hydrogen, fusing hydrogen nuclei together to make other elements such as carbon. They then use that carbon and free neutrons to make even heavier elements such as iron and nickel. Novas spew those heavy elements into the void, from which second-generation stars and planets form. Supernovae produce even heavier elements such as gold and silicates, of which Earth is made out of, and also titanium and other elements. We know our star, Sol, is a second-generation star because it has planets orbiting it. It also has heavy elements within it that it cannot synthesize itself. Reverend Hovind claims none of this can happen because of Boyle's law. He is full of shit.
One professor said, "Oh, Hovind, we figured if 20 stars explode near each other, they'll produce enough energy to squeeze the gas and make a new star."
That is not how stars form, and that is not anything a professor would be telling Reverend Hovind. No professor in any field of science would say such a thing.
It is possible that Psalm 104 ties in with Psalm 148, that there is still water above the heavens.
No, it is not possible for water to still be above the heavens. There is no firmament made out of brass to which the stars are affixed. There are no gates in that firmament that are open to let rain fall to earth. There is no such place as, quote, above the heavens, unquote. Note that this has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that we see light that is billions of years old. Reverend Hovind is still evading the issue by changing the subject.
Nobody knows what's beyond the stars.
The universe is unbound as far as we know. There is no such place as, quote, beyond the stars, unquote.
There was a layer of water above the earth, and there may be another layer of water beyond the stars.
No, there was no layer of water above the earth. There is no layer of water beyond the stars. This has nothing to do with ancient light.
Stephen Hawking, who hates Christians and creationists, said,
"The name is Stephen Hawking, not Stephen Hawkins. There is no evidence that he hates anyone."
And won't debate me, by the way.
Why the bloody fuck would a theoretical astrophysicist debate a church preacher? That's just stupid. Why would any astronomer debate a flat earther? Reverend Hovind is not worthy of Hawking's time.
So when you look at a star, you cannot see the size or shape of the star. All you see is what color it is.
Reverend Hovind is here claiming we cannot know the shape of stars. Good bloody gods. Also, we can know, and we do know, the size of a very great many stars. Stellar physics gives a precise method of determining star size by its various radiations. None of this, of course, has anything to do with ancient light. Reverend Hovind is again changing the subject.
We assume that stars are like the sun and the sun is like stars, but that is purely an assumption. We don't know that.
Yes, we do know that. Spectral analysis shows stars and galaxies are made up of the same elements we observe in Sol and Earth. None of this has to do with ancient light.
Some people say, oh yeah, we can tell by the elements that it's burning.
Stars do not burn anything. No astronomer or astrophysicist or cosmologist would say such a thing. And again, this has nothing to do with ancient light problem Hovind wants to solve.
You know, evolutionists never talk about this, but they are, of course, assuming.
Evolutionists, this ignorant fucktard said. We are talking about astronomy and cosmology, and this ignorant asshole bastard says, evolutionist. Good fucking gods.
They're assuming the same 92 elements we have here will be the same found throughout the universe.
There are 117 elements known, and it is no assumption. Astronomers observe the fact that stars are made out of the same elements we observe here on Earth. Again, this has nothing to do with ancient light.
I taught high school trig for many years as one of the subjects I taught.
No, Reverend Hovind did not teach high school science. He went straight from high school into being a pastor and a preacher. He never taught high school science. He lied.
Figuring 15 billion light years is clearly impossible.
Here, Reverend Hovind is claiming that scientists use parallax to determine the size of the universe. That is bullshit. They do not. Parallax is only good for objects up to about 1,600 light years away. Nobody says one can use it to measure distances up to, quote, 15 billion light years, unquote. Hovind is using a straw man.
I think you'd have a hard time measuring 20 light years, but I'll give him 100. I'll give him 500 for the sake of the argument.
The latest space-based telescope, built specifically to measure parallax and proper motion, can measure arcs as little as 1,000th of an arc second. That means it can measure distances to stars within a radius of 1,600 light years.
If somebody tells you that star is, 7.9 billion light years away, you say, how did you measure it?
The answer is the cosmic distance ladder. One can determine the distance of objects billions of light years away by making a series of calculations, all based upon several observed criteria. It starts with the diameter of the Earth's orbit around Sol. The second step is measuring parallax to nearby stars. The third step involves several different methods, such as main sequence fitting of stars, the velocity of Cepheids and supernova ejecta, also redshifts and Hubble's law.
It just can't be done. So, number one, you cannot measure the distance to the stars. Number two, we don't know what light is.
Number one, yes, we can and do measure distance to the stars. Number two, yes, we do know what light is.
Is it a wave? Is it a photon? Is it a particle? It behaves sometimes like waves, sometimes like energy. Nobody knows for sure what light is.
That is a crock of shit. Thousands of physicists know what light is. Bloody hell, even I know what light is. There are excellent essays on the subject available on the internet regarding what light is. So that addresses the first part of Reverend Hovind's video about stellar light. I will address the second part of his video later.